How's it, punters? Welcome back to the Best Sports Betting Podcast. Pretty successful week for me last week out. I carried on the Newcastle train, took me all the way to winner station with a nice win over Southampton. I did like your bet with Newcastle to score a goal against Chelsea, but I also really like Chelsea to beat Newcastle there in that second kind of fixture. Fortunately, that one didn't come in for you, Simon. But the
Yeah,
tune are looking very, very good. Not a bad result against Chelsea, to be honest.
not a bad result. They actually played pretty well. I mean, if they'd actually gone on to get a clean sheet against Chelsea, that would be the second team, other than Man City, to have done that. So obviously they did concede that last minute goal. Kai Havertz scored an absolute cracker. I think that player he's such a good striker. Newcastle would have been the second team to keep a clean sheet at Stamford Bridge, but unfortunately that wasn't the case. But yeah, again, another solid performance against Southampton, and played just as well against Chelsea. So they seem to be really on a good run of form.
Yeah, and then other than that, I fancied Wolves to beat Watford, and then we had Aston Villa beating Leeds. It was a kind of a double game week vibe, kind of weird with the Thursday fixtures. But then over the weekend, we had Liverpool beating Brighton, and then Man United, Simon, I called it.
Yeah.
There's a bit of a pattern with those Red Devils. Eh? It doesn't matter how good Spurs play when they. You can only judge them. Same with United. No matter how badly they play, you can only judge them from one game. You don't want to
Yeah, that's
steer.
absolutely right. It was actually a great game. I mean, I think there was some good matches this weekend, but I think that was probably you would have to call that the headlining match. And it was fantastic. I mean, it was really good to actually see Ronaldo,
Yes.
playing at the level that we come to expect from him. And I wouldn't say he certainly hasn't been a dud since he's moved to United, but he hasn't played with quite that level of form. And he played very well, obviously scoring a hat trick and scoring all three goals for United in what was a very exciting match. I must say it was a really good one to watch. So it's always nice when a sort of headlining match of the weekend kind of lives up to expectation.
Yeah, and good bounce back win for United there, and Spurs just not able to kind of continue with the form that they showed the week before, which is just one of those bogey teams I'm happy to go against. When the time's right. Then
Yeah.
Wolves beating Everton, pretty close game there. I probably would have lent with Wolves on that one. West Ham sneaking past Aston Villa. Arsenal picking up a comfortable 2-0 win against Leicester. Arsenal, we're going to be talking about them in their match tonight a bit later. But other than that, not too much else to talk about. Not too many big matches,
Well, I
except
think I think
City drawing with Crystal Palace. I guess might be a talking point.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a goalless draw at Selhurst Park is a very good result for Palace, and they're actually inching
A
their way to the
good
top
result
half of the
for
table.
Liverpool as well.
Yes, yes. But yeah, so Palace looking good. I mean, they're actually inching their way to the top half of the table. So looking like they might finish up, around there and thereabouts at the end of the season. But I think one thing worth mentioning is, obviously sort of Chelsea's situation at the moment, with obviously all their finances frozen after
Mm,
their Russian owner Roman Abramovich was forced to hand over the club until they find a new buyer. So, I mean, that means no tickets can be sold
no
at
merchandise.
games, no players can be bought, nothing at all, no merchandise. I mean, you can't even buy coffee, never mind a pint of Stella in the stadium. So it's really a dire affair. I mean, it's only a matter of time, I think, before that really starts to have an impact on the club.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
think the club's going to be dead for all intents and purposes. To be honest, I think it's the end of Chelsea. I'm being a bit extreme here,
mm,
but these financial sort of regulations and no more Abramovich behind them. Whoever going to buy them is going to have as deep pockets. And who has
yeah,
Newcastle owners? And guess what? They bought Newcastle.
yeah,
They probably would have bought Chelsea if this had happened earlier.
sure,
But
absolutely. I mean,
big trouble for Chelsea on the
I
rise.
mean, on the field, Chelsea look a team in very good nick. Obviously, I mean they're the champions of Europe. They really do they look good. So it's really a pity, because I think this is going to have a die. I mean, just to keep right at the top there, even if you've got a bunch of players who you've already acquired that are of the highest quality. I mean, to keep competitive, you need to buy players
Yes,
often.
you have to spend money.
And
I see them
yeah,
becoming like a Spurs. If that makes sense.
Yeah, but it's going to be interesting to see how quickly the change happens. Look, this might, who knows, something can happen, and it could all be kind of swept under the carpet, but it doesn't seem likely to me.
No, I think there's just too much. It's just too much in the public eye for this to go. I mean, they're seizing all these oligarchs yachts and all of
Mm,
that's it's big, and I'm sure that the football world's not too bummed about it either. I
yeah.
remember when I was in England back in what was it 2003 or something when he first bought the club, and there was a lot of ill will towards him then already. But
Hmm.
it was a good era. I can't say I like the guy, but he did a lot for the club with the money. But I think that's kind of come to its end now. Well, it's going to it's going to go into a decline. I'm not going to say next season's
Oh
going
yeah.
to
I
be
mean,
a
people turn a blind eye very quickly when the team's winning, right?
yes.
It's when teams start losing that people start pointing fingers and looking for excuses. And so yeah.
And then some Six Nations, Simon. We went. Let's go to the Italy Scotland game.
Mm.
Italy putting in a fair shift there, losing by 11 points, 22-33.
Yeah, both Scotland and France both won their games, but neither covered the handicap as far as I can remember where the lines were at. I think Scotland was about 10, but France certainly didn't cover their handicap.
Yes.
And um, yeah, I mean, it was interesting that England Ireland game was really up and down. I mean, Ireland came out of the blocks firing. They scored a try and a penalty really quickly, and then England
Well,
dug
at
their
first
heels in.
there was that first minute red card that I guess is
Yes,
what
yeah,
really set the tone of the
absolutely.
game.
Yeah, and then before you could blink an eye, England were down 10-0.
It was a red card in
And
my
then,
eyes as well. I've watched replays of it. I
yeah,
mean, what
no,
a dumb
I
tackle to make.
absolutely no, it was totally irresponsible. But England finished off the first half a lot better. They were more competitive in the scrums and giving away fewer penalties and so on. But then I must say, from that point onwards, I had a sort of hunch that England were going to go on and win. But sort of just as they were starting to find their way into the match, Ireland just put it into another gear. I mean, they're just their line was just running so quickly, and for the last 15 or 20 minutes, I mean, it was a no contest. They were really, really good in that sort of latter 20 minutes of the game. So that kind of puts the whole tournament sets it up for this weekend, which is the final weekend. So, France's 13-9 win over Wales means their outright price is now 3-10. So they're the strong favourites now. But Ireland and England both still have a shot, but we'll get to that a bit later. But
So, I
Wales
mean, I
and
guess we
Scotland out.
might as well jump into that now. I don't think there's too
Mm,
much else to recap. So, while we're on the topic, we've got Wales taking on Italy. It should be a pretty easy win for Wales. By the way, the handicap was I think about 18 for the Scotland game.
okay,
So,
so they didn't cover it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Then Ireland taking on Scotland could be a tricky one for the Irish, but they should pick up the win there. And then the big one is France taking on England, the old rivals.
Yeah, so look, I mean, Wales, Italy's a dead rubber. None of those teams can mathematically can win the tournament, and then the France England match is the biggest for a number of reasons. I mean, so basically, I haven't done the math. So from what I can see, France will need to beat England to win, and then England will need to beat France, and Ireland will need to lose to Scotland for England
Yes,
to win,
yes.
and then
No,
Ireland will
wait,
need
wait.
to.
England are. Can England even pick up a win there? They're 8 points behind them. France on the table. I think it's
Yeah,
just
they can.
between.
They would need, but I think Ireland would need a bonus point.
Okay.
So it's possible. Look, I mean, it's going to be difficult for anyone to kind of knock France off the pedestal there. But England will need to win their match against Scotland and hope England beats France for Ireland to win the trophy. So there's a few permutations there, but I think it looks like it's France's to lose for sure.
Yes, yes. So France just need to pick up a win, and
Yeah,
that would settle it. No,
but
I mean, oof, it's it should be a
it's
good
going to be
match, and
tricky.
I think France take this one. To be honest.
Yeah. No, look, I think England will give it all they have. But other news from rugby just before we move on is that Rusty Erasmus might coach England next year, and SA might join the Six Nations. So
Yes, yes. I
that should
heard
be
about that.
interesting.
Mm,
But yeah, I mean, are people saying, "Oh, Rusty's a traitor," this or that? I mean, I think it's why not? I don't think there's any reason
no.
why. Look, I think that I guess there's sort of unfinished business here, and I think that he South Africa would certainly benefit from him sticking around. But I think that it's an opportunity he should take up.
Yeah,
Why not?
and these guys aren't just in it for the pride of country. It's also paychecks, and
Hmm.
I'm sure after that he can probably can retire quite comfortably.
Yeah.
Look at Eddie Jones. He had a similar situation when he was going to come to Western Province and he got offered the England job, although it's not quite the same pedigree. But
Yeah, sure.
a good thing he took the England job at the end of the day. It's going to do a lot more for his career. And also with Rassi, I mean, a new challenge, something else, something different. So going to be quite interesting to see if that happens.
It will be, and and I mean, South Africa joining the Six Nations would be fun too.
Yeah, that would be interesting. I like the idea of it, but the Six Nations for me is the Six Nations. It's going to be a little bit weird. I don't really think South Africa belongs there. It's a Northern Hemisphere tournament. It's just because we've had the Rugby Championship. It's been such a disaster because of COVID and whatnot.
Right. Yeah.
Super Rugby as well. Super Rugby used to be an amazing, and it's just gone backwards. And I guess at the moment there's also a lot of South African franchises playing in the European competitions.
Yes, absolutely.
Which I don't necessarily like either. But that's just my personal view on it. And Simon, let's jump over to some upcoming Premier League this weekend. We've got a big match tonight. It's Arsenal versus Liverpool. I think that's going to be one of the main talking points. Also, Brighton taking on Spurs. I'm going with a crazy one here. I fancy Arsenal to pick up a result. I'm being a little bit nuts.
Well, I don't know. I mean, look, it's certainly probably the best time of all season to back Arsenal, but I mean, you can't fault Liverpool either.
No.
This match actually with daylight savings only starts at 10:15, which is it's actually quite late for an old man like me. Normally when I go to bed after about midnight, I feel like an absolute wreck the next day. So I wish these games wouldn't start so late. But yeah, it's what a fantastic midweek fixture. I think Arsenal will put up a very good fight against Liverpool. I must say one thing which I think backs you up, and I think James Milner is such an important player for Liverpool, and he's going to be out. He's sick. Otherwise, there's no real serious injuries. When looking at this, I mean, I think the odds are about right. I would also put Liverpool the shade under evens there. The total goals market, I think, it's shaded towards the over 2.5, and I actually think odds of 1.69 with Betway, and there might be a better price out there, is actually very backable still. I just think that this game has got overwritten all over it. I mean, I think that the 1.69 is still a bit of value there. I think you could probably make the case that Arsenal will kind of be on sort of damage control duty and happy to get a point, but I think the goals will flow easily in this one. So I quite like the over. I don't know, would you like it from a betting perspective, Rob?
So just looking at the history of the side, it all favors Liverpool. Liverpool have visited the Emirates in the last five. Haven't lost it in the last 5 visits to the Emirates, and I just think these are the two informed teams in the Premier League at the moment. Look, Liverpool's a much better side. That's no doubt about that. But if you're giving me odds of 1.9 on Arsenal to win or draw, that's where my eyes light up. I think Liverpool are going to be strong here. They've probably got a good shot of winning, but I think a draw is the most likely outcome. Arsenal they're playing something different at the moment. So
they are.
And Liverpool also due a kind of, I don't want to say a loss, but like a poor result. So I just feel Arsenal might pick up the results that's more in favour of them rather than the Liverpool win.
Sure.
My head says Liverpool win, but the odds for me, I've got to go with Arsenal to draw on the double chance. I mean, Liverpool 1.87. I'm getting better odds on Arsenal to win or draw.
Look, I mean, I think the bookies are respecting Arsenal with this price because, I mean, if you think about if this match happened, 6 weeks ago, the odds would have been about 1.6 on Liverpool easily. So I don't think that the bookmakers are disrespecting Arsenal here, but I totally get where you're coming from. If you can cover the draw there and still get a decent price, I mean, obviously Arsenal are playing at home, so but it should be a very good game, and it's fantastic to have a game like this on a Wednesday night.
Yes, it's definitely the highlight of the week. And then we've also got the Spurs Brighton game. I'm not going to talk too much about that. I've actually got nothing to say there. It's probably a good spot to back Spurs, but I just don't trust him. And another side I don't trust is Everton taking on Newcastle. Everton are in a mess at the moment.
we were just chatting about this before the podcast started. I mean, it seems like up until this week, you've been getting pretty juicy odds on Newcastle, and I think they've now finally the bookies are sort of catching up because, I mean, look, Everton are still favourites, but not by a huge amount. I mean, they're 2.3 around there. So,
Yeah.
I mean, and Newcastle did beat Everton 3-1 at home in February. So, I think this looks about the right price. I think, yeah. I mean, you can't. I wouldn't make Newcastle favourites here. That would be going a bit far. But I think, but that said, I mean, a win for the Toon at around odds of 2-1, 3 in decimal odds
Mm.
is you can't. I mean, I wouldn't put anyone off that either. So
Yeah, I'd be interested in if the odds are a bit higher. If it was about 3.5, I'd get a bit
yeah,
more on the double chance. I like the double chance in this one as well. I think it's going to be a scrappy match. It's probably going to be a draw. Um, Whichever side takes a chance is going to win it. It's a very generic thing of me to say. But both teams to score might be a bit more value at 1.73. I'm just not sure how Newcastle are going to react after that loss to Chelsea. But given it was a kind of expected loss, and if this match was played, instead of the Chelsea match, I think my opinion would probably be to go with a Newcastle win, or the double chance, which I think is still what I favour here.
Yeah.
So quite inconclusive from my side. Maybe both teams to score.
Yeah, look, I think we're getting a bit of value on Newcastle last week. I don't think that's the case, but yeah, I would have to favor Newcastle here as well. Just don't know if the odds are really there for me.
Yeah, same. Then we have Wolves versus Leeds. Actually, fancy Wolves 2.1 is not a bad price on Wolves to beat Leeds. Wolves are playing fairly well at the moment as well. They've picked up some good wins. Leeds are Leeds.
I mean. Yeah, they've actually Leeds have had a terrible run of
five losses in a row that I'm just looking at over here.
They have, yeah, and I mean that was they got thumped by Aston Villa, and they're 3-0. I think
that's Aston Villa. Gosh.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean Leeds were sort of permanent fixture in the Premier League a couple decades ago. I mean, remember they're kind of yeah, no, they're a very, very good side a while ago, and they do have a massive fan base. So I'm sure I mean, the season started out pretty well for them, but it's really gone to they've fallen off a cliff.
Just about staying up now, really.
Yeah,
they are looking fairly safe. Well, that can change very quickly, but this is a match I don't think they're going to get anything from, and I think 2.1 on Wolves is a pretty good price.
Yeah.
Then on Saturday, we have Aston Villa taking on Arsenal. I can't look past Arsenal in this game. Yes, they've got this big match coming up against Liverpool. A lot's going to depend on that. I think, look, if they have a shocker, don't take the bet. But if they put in a reasonable performance, even if they lose to Liverpool, I still think the 2.2 on offer to beat Aston Villa is a good price, considering Arsenal's recent form. Aston Villa just not quite in the same pedigree as Arsenal. So that's one that I also fancy. Obviously, it depends. Look, if Arsenal get a result against Liverpool, I'm sure that's going to drop a bit.
Sure.
But even if they lose to Liverpool, I still think it's a solid bet because you're going from playing a solid side, or one of the best sides in the Premier League, if not the best side, and then to playing one of the kind of crazier sides, one of the weaker sides in Aston Villa, and it'll be a great bounce back spot for Arsenal should they lose to Liverpool. So I do fancy them. It is a short game week though for them, but I'm still going to go with that one. Then we have Leicester taking on Brentford. Brentford kind of lost track of their season a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, they have. I mean, they really started out very, very well. But I think they've obviously got a very good chance of still staying up. So, and I think really, I mean, any team that gets promoted maybe not the first time, but it could possibly be the first time that Brentford have been up there. I mean, your first priority is just staying up, right? I mean, you got to just stay out of that bottom three, and then if you achieve that, I think you've done a pretty good job.
Yeah, keeping Hollywood Bets very happy. I must actually
absolutely
ask them if they can send me a Brentford shirt or two. I know Betway did promise me a West Ham shirt or two that never arrived, but would be nice to get a Bees shirt. Then we have Spurs taking on West Ham. I'm not going to say anything about that game. There's too much riding on the game with Brighton for me to call anything on that one. I think maybe, yeah, I'm not gonna. I've got nothing there, to be honest, at all.
Yeah, same here. Same here.
But then we have some Champions League taking place as well. A lot of footy going on this week. We've got Lille taking on Chelsea, and we've got Juventus taking on Villarreal.
Yeah, I mean the Juventus Villarreal game is really nicely tied up. I mean, it was a 1-1 draw in the first leg, and now Juventus will host Villarreal in Turin. So that should really go. That should be a good one. And then Chelsea have a 2-0 first leg lead over Lille, and now they're going to France. So that they should just push on through there. I imagine quite comfortably. But yeah, I think that Juventus Villarreal game should be quite interesting. But yeah, I mean personally tonight I'll be definitely watching the Liverpool Arsenal game rather than those two games.
Yes,
But
yes.
I think it should just go as expected in that regard.
Yeah, looking at under 2.5 goals in the Chelsea Lille game at 1.78. If I had to take a bet, that's probably where I'd go. I do think this one's wrapped up, maybe a 1-1 or another 2-0 win to Chelsea or something like that. So I don't think it's going to be a goal fest. That's what I would go. And then, Simon, we have some Grand Prix coming up.
Yes.
You wanted to chat about the Bahrain Grand Prix. So, yeah,
sure.
Let's get to it.
I mean, I could honestly spend an hour talking up and building up this first race, but I won't. Nobody got time for that.
Very quick. I mean, not too long ago, we were talking about the close of the season.
I know, and how dramatic it was. I mean, yeah. So, I mean, let's just start by saying, I mean, last season was almost unbeatable in terms of drama, and I can say with a pretty high level of confidence that this season won't be as dramatic. I mean, that was just unbelievable. Just to set that scene a little bit, or just kind of conclude there. I mean, for starters, a full investigation happened into the incident in Abu Dhabi, which is the last race, which of course
was that the wing capping one, or?
Well, I mean, basically, when Michael Massey, the race director,
right,
changed the rules and basically forced, they should have finished behind the safety car, but he forced a dramatic finish.
So what was the outcome? I know about the incident, but what?
Well, the outcome was Verstappen winning the race when he
but after the investigation.
Right. So basically, he's been let go. So he's still in F1. But he's not the race director. And the big change this season, which is also why I say there will probably be not as much drama, is that there is no more communication between team managers and race control. So before, if someone, like for instance, Toto Wolff from Mercedes didn't like the way something was happening, he could speak to the race director during the race, and you would hear that as watching the race. I mean, everyone could hear it. So, which I think was, asking for trouble, to be honest. But that communication now will not happen. They will have the opportunity to speak to the race director, but it'll happen in private, and no decisions are going to be made sort of on the fly like that, and so on. So I think that that's another reason why this season won't be as unpredictable. But Mercedes are also kind of doing things from their sort of old playbook, playing down their ability this season. Look, obviously the proof's in the pudding, but they're kind of like underselling themselves. Obviously there's all this drama. I mean, after that whole incident in Abu Dhabi happened, there was talk of maybe Hamilton retiring and so on. But I think, to be honest, I think this is all mind games. I really do. I think they're trying to give Red Bull, or sort of give them a sense of confidence and kind of, I think they're going to come back firing, to be honest. But that said, Max Verstappen did finish fastest in the preseason testing, and that's why the bookies have him as a slight favorite to win in Bahrain. So you can get him at odds of just under 3, and then Lewis Hamilton's behind him at 3.5. So, look, at the end of the day, if your car is faster, you have to pay attention to that. So, I mean, Red Bull have proved their worth, and let's see going into the qualifying on Saturday. But talking just to set the scene a little bit in terms of the other teams, because of course Red Bull and Mercedes are, they're probably going to win the championship, one of those two. But it's interesting to see the duel between McLaren and Ferrari, because McLaren came second to Ferrari in the Constructors' Championship, even though they were leading for quite a while in the season. And if you look at the odds now, both McLaren drivers are way behind the Ferrari drivers, and even ahead of George Russell, who's Hamilton's new teammate at Mercedes. So You have Sainz and Leclerc ahead of Russell in the betting, which I think is quite interesting because, yeah, sure, Russell might be a new teammate, but he's a very good driver, and I think that if he's in the Mercedes car, he's going to be faster. But anyway, let's see. But yeah, as far as the betting goes, look, it's always tricky. I mean, it's sort of if you're not backing Verstappen or Hamilton, you kind of you have to
Yeah, you're
to get
hoping
any
for some luck to go your way or a crash or
to get any value, you
yeah.
kind of have to fade those two. But I must say, I can't really understand this. Sergio Perez, who's Verstappen's teammate, and I mean also a very good driver, odds are 20-1 to win, which I can't quite understand. And I think with so many unknowns at this early stage, I think this is a good time to back a great driver in the fastest or arguably second fastest. It depends on who which news you read. Car in the field. So I don't quite get it. I mean, if you look at the odds, the whole of last season, you would basically have Verstappen or Hamilton dueling for first place on in the odds board, and then you would have Bottas, and then you would have Perez, and now Perez is all the way down there in sort of fifth, sixth place. I don't understand. I really don't. So look, it's going to be hard it's always difficult, as I said, for anybody but Hamilton or Verstappen to back anyone besides those two. But I just don't quite understand why Perez is hanging all the way down there.
Mm.
So I think backing him at 20-1. I think that this is especially early in the season when you just don't quite know what to expect. It looks like the Red Bull car could be the fastest because Verstappen set the fastest lap time. So even more reason. I mean, he could be in the fastest car. There's nothing wrong with his driving. 20-1 looks an absolute gift to me. So as I said, it's always a long shot fading Hamilton or Verstappen, but those odds are just too good to pass
So,
up, in
so
my
good
opinion.
time to back Sergio Perez there. Where did you
Yeah.
see that 20-1? Which bookie?
That was with GBet.
Okay, nice.
I didn't look elsewhere. That was just what I was looking today. But yeah, to 20-1, you have Verstappen and Hamilton as the favorites there. Then Leclerc, Sainz, Russell, and then Perez. So he's sitting sixth on the odds board
Mm.
in arguably the fastest car. The fastest car in preseason testing. I don't understand it. Perez would normally be sitting last season. He was sitting in third in the betting, or third or fourth, depending. So it's interesting to see that. So I don't quite understand that. So I think there's a bit of value there. So I'll back him at a juicy price.
I'm just looking at some of the specials here, seeing if I can find a price on him for the podium, but it doesn't look like there's much out for that at the moment.
So you can get a top three finish
Yes.
at 2.75. So it's obviously a huge
Yeah. It's a big cut.
look.
It's a big odds drop.
Yeah, that I must say that is somewhere in Grand Prix where the bookies take a big chunk of margin.
Mm.
Is podiums, because I think it's
Like
just
horse
because
racing, like a place
yeah,
finish in horse
absolutely.
racing. Yeah.
It's the unpredictability sort of behind those favorites. It's kind of like you know in 50% or more of the races it's going to be Lewis Hamilton or Verstappen in first or second, and then from there on it's a bit of a lottery. So they don't like to give you big odds on race. I mean, that's the thing. You have to go all the way down to Daniel Ricciardo to even get a sort of decent price for a top three finish. And that's another talking point. I mean, what a fall from grace. I mean, he was bought by my McLaren, or signed by McLaren rather, as I mean, he just hasn't performed very well. So it's
Mm.
interesting to see Lando Norris, who has much less experience at McLaren, or as in general as a driver, has done much better than him. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Ricardo. But yeah, cut me off before I just talk for days.
All right, yeah. I mean, that pretty much brings us to the end of the podcast. What's going to be your bet of the week? Where are you going to go?
Sure. I must say there's nothing that I'm in love with this week at all. I don't know. I honestly, I mean, I think I actually don't have a bet. Honestly, what do you
I'm going to
like,
go
Rob?
with my Arsenal pick. It's my only sort of kind of bet that have that fair bit of confidence in
Hmm.
one that I think that has a good shot at landing is the Arsenal double chance, just on those odds alone,
Right.
which is taking place tonight.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, I mean, I suppose I think France are going to win France are probably going to win the. Look, if you want to take France on the handicap, maybe I think I'm not sure what we're looking at there.
That's about eight and a half, seven,
See,
seven.
now
Yeah,
that's a bit big
a bit
for me.
high.
So, I fancy France to beat England, but I don't like that handicap, and backing them at sort of 3 to 10 doesn't really appeal to me. So,
No, no.
I think I'll keep the
Give this
powder
give
dry
this
this
one a
weekend.
give this one a miss. Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
cool. Well, guys, thanks for tuning into this episode of the podcast. It's quite an action-filled one. Hopefully, we have some nice results, some nice winners, and a lot of sport to look forward to this weekend. And we'll catch you in the next one. Have a good one, guys. Cheers.